to Deputy John McGuinness, please.
Count Corla, I welcome the opportunity to speak on this bill, the Children's Health Bill 2018, and I understand the importance of the bill, but there are issues that I would like to raise with you, Minister, in relation to the health care of our children and our young population. But firstly, let me say to you that the Department of Health under Minister Harris has the handy knack of creating a smokescreen, such as the introduction of this bill now at this particular time, when there are so many huge issues that are being debated publicly around the provision of health services. 1 million people on waiting lists of one kind or another, the issues around cervical cancer and the availability of new drugs to people. So as all of that is being debated and the controversy is ongoing, the Minister then introduces this bill. So forgive me if I doubted somewhat in relation to his sincerity around the timeframes and so on involved here, because in it he says there are 9 sections to the bill, all of which will be commenced at different stages by ministerial order. So you would imagine that if the legislation was that urgent, that it would be specified clearly in the bill, step by step, as to where we were going with the legislation, and there would be less use of ministerial order. In this case, it is 9 sections, and it's all on ministerial order. The other thing that I take issue with is the importance, as laid out in the Minister's brief here, which talks about the entity that will be the new board. And it talks about, and it's an interesting point, because this highlights just where the Department of Health and the HSE is. It's approved a new consultative approach to agreeing a brand image, an operational name for the new entity. The naming process to be undertaken by the Children's Hospital Group will be a short list of names for the government endorsement prior to announcement. There seems to be more weight given to the creation of a corporate entity and the concern all around that than there is to dealing with the real issues in health and the care of children. So when you compare that statement with the waiting lists for Temple Street, Crumlin and Tala from 2018, 44,615 waiting. And when you break down that number to those waiting for 12 months plus, it's 16,862. You go on further and you look at the waiting list of 18 months plus, and it's 10,304. And outpatients is just a disgrace, because that increased by 33%, from 33,492 to 44,615. It's absolutely outrageous. And the bill that we're passing today is going to deal with something in the future, commenced by ministerial order. And the date has been shifted out time and time again. You know, this is generally on the books for consideration since 2012. In fact, the government promised this hospital in the last term from 2011. The Minister and current Taoiseach promised it in 2019. Now we're being told it's 2022. Now, I welcome the hospital. I welcome the development because I believe that in the overall it will improve the healthcare of the youngest in our society. But what I can't understand is the emphasis on this corporate structure and the turning of a blind eye to what is currently happening in relation to the care of those children. So what parents all around the country will want to know is, they will want to know what's going to happen, my child that's on the waiting list, between now and 2022, when you say that this is going to be delivered. That's what they will want to know. And I would like to see you address that issue and give some sort of time frame to those parents for the care of their children, because that's the biggest concern in their lives. And I wouldn't say there's a member in this House that would disagree with prioritising the health of young children. To deprive them of the health care, as you are with the waiting list, 16,000, is to deprive them of a quality of life that they are entitled to now and not in 2022. So can you address how you are going to deal with the waiting lists that are currently there? No waffle, no bluff, just facts. Tell us the facts in a given time frame so that they can plan for the future of the health care of their child. Plan in a different way, in a more positive way. Because every child that's sick, every child that's threatened to have a poor future of health, is a huge concern to family, parents and their siblings. It has to be dealt with. It has to be explained. Now, this new entity, I understand, is going to be a Section 38. So if you look at that Section 38 and their accountability to this House and to Public Accounts Committee, the Minister says the CEO will be the accounting officer. Now, there has been huge difficulty in the past in dealing with Section 38s, Section 39s, in the context of their accountability to the Public Accounts Committee. And I would appeal to you to ensure that the language in this bill makes it crystal clear that the Section 38s in general, are accountable to the Public Accounts Committee. And I should add with that the Section 39s. You have to do it, Minister, to clarify the language. Otherwise, they will duck and dodge and avoid accountability and transparency, which has been the history of that sector as long as I can remember. Because the HSE, within its own culture, believes that it's above accountability. You look at the HSE and its budgets every single year, and if we were realistic in looking at those budgets, and take this year alone, with all of what is required to keep it going and what it has spent, it is going to be €1 billion over budget. And that's not an exaggeration. Yes, you'll bluff the figures again, you'll massage them to make them look okay, but every single year it has gone from a bad position to a worse position and then to a position of almost not being able to deal with the overrun. If you don't get that in hand, you are not serving the department or the health of the country very well, and you're allowing it to happen. And that's my concern in relation to the accountability of this new structure. The other concern I have is that if you're amalgamating these hospitals and you have one unit and there are other services that will be provided, and the Minister in his statement today said that it provides a unique opportunity to introduce a new model of care for paediatric services. What does that mean? How will that new model of care impact on the waiting lists that are currently there and will remain stubbornly so because your government lacks the vision, humanity and compassion to deal with those lists? So can you tell me what that means and what is the tangible result going to be for the children that are on those waiting lists? There's an obligation on you to explain this. There's an obligation on Minister Harris to ensure that all this happens. And you'll forgive me for using the word bluff, but the fact of the matter is, you bluffed the Irish electorate into believing that you were going to rectify the health services. You bluffed them into believing that you were going to burn every quango in the place. And in the last term and this term, you have put further quangos into place without any bother to you and without any understanding that you had given a promise to the people that you now represent. So is this management system that you're putting in place just another quango? Could it have been done differently and in a more financially beneficial way, and at the same time achieve a better or the same result? And I would like to hear what you would have to say in relation to why that has happened. In the few minutes that I have left, Minister, through you, Ceann Comhairle, I've been asked to raise directly with the Minister the care of a constituent of mine, Alice Taylor, who went public herself, along with her mother, about the drug Pembro. Again, a young woman who requires this drug. It has been said to her that it will make a difference to her life and that will prolong her life. And the cold, inhuman response from the Department of Health and the HSE just beggars belief. And again, you're dealing with the life of a young woman. Now, I'm asking you, Minister, specifically, will you check out this case, the parliamentary question that I asked recently, and will you do something to help prolong the life of this young woman and ensure that the drug which has been advised that she should take is approved for her? She's supported by Vicky Phelan, who in my opinion is one of the bravest women to come from Irish society in recent years, and is now not only advocating or not only dealing with her own case, but she's advocating for others, taking on the system and dealing with the disgraceful cases that have come before the courts and the use of the confidentiality clause. And the second case I want to bring to your attention, because again, it's a young person, it's that of Isaac Brennan. Again, went public outside of the gates here for the use of the drug for spinal muscular atrophy. Now, I don't know how any government, as hard as it could be, could turn a child away from the care and treatment that they deserve. I know it costs money, but go down and sit at the Public Accounts Committee any week and listen to how the HSE squanders vast sums of money, not on patients, but on the administration of a dysfunctional system. How can the Minister say no to Alice Taylor? How can the Minister say no to Isaac Brennan? And if you do say no, and if that's your position, and you abandon all understanding of humanity and compassion, then you should not be where you are, because your interest is for the common good, or your actions should be for the common good. And it's a shameful government that would ignore not just those two cases, but cases also that are similar to both of those young people. And finally, I want to turn to scoliosis. You know, I have watched, again, very young children being abandoned by the state in the context of their care. I've watched their deformed bodies plead with the state to please give the health system and the actions that are required to give them a better quality of life. And quite frankly, I have been less than impressed by the action of government or the HSE. And again, similar to this hospital, similar to this management system that's set up, the HSE has shown no regard for the health. It would seem that the general message from the HSE, and I hope it doesn't happen with this hospital, is just, like the department, to bluff and fumble its way through a dysfunctional system. So there's a lot to be learned from what has happened in the past in relation to the care of our children. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in the context of the delivery of what is outlined in this bill. But I don't see much content in the bill that gives an indication as to what changes are going to be made directly for the care of the children on the waiting list from this day onwards to 2022. So I welcome generally what the bill is trying to achieve. I've raised the questions that I think I need to raise with you. I've personalised some of them to specific cases and health care. And I would ask you, Minister, to please acknowledge the efforts that are being made by members of this House to get the rights acknowledged for those that are sick within our society and those that are not receiving the care and attention that they deserve within the current health system, and where the system has failed them and refuses to acknowledge what is now maybe better practice than before in the care of a specific medical condition.